Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you guys how I use Photoshop to process my Astro images, some of the techniques that you can use, some of the actions, some of the tools, some of the different layers and things that you can use in Photoshop to process your Astro images in a very simple, easy method. Anybody can do this. If you follow along and you apply these methods to your Astro images, it's actually a lot easier than you think. And I'm really excited to share this with you guys, but just be aware, there are some paid Astro tools that I will be using in here, but I will introduce those to you guys in the beginning so you know what we'll be using. So I hope you'll follow along. This is gonna be exciting and fun. I've got M16, the Eagle Nebula, lined up. This is an image that I just posted online. It came out super great. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna redo it in this video, and I hope you'll follow along. So let's get started. I'm Dan, aka Deep Sky Dan, and this is Smartphone Astro. Okay, let's get processing. I've got Photoshop open here, and I've got M16, the Eagle Nebula, loaded, and you're seeing that on the screen now in this image here. Well, if you're wondering why it's so bright, well, this is the stretched autosave out of Astro Pixel Processor. This is what it pops out at the end after stacking. And again, it does apply a stretch to it, kind of similar to what Deep Sky Stacker does to its autosave when it spits it out. It does apply a minimal stretch to it, maybe here a little bit more than the autosave out of Deep Sky Stacker. Now normally it would be a FITS image, but to use in Photoshop here, I had to save it as a TIFF image in order to be able to load it whatsoever. So again, I'm using Astro Pixel Processor, a paid stacking program to stack my images. Before I was using Deep Sky Stacker, and that is a great program for free. It's absolutely wonderful when you can use free programs in this hobby. But I've made the switch to Astro Pixel Processor, and it has a lot more capabilities and after tools, and I really like it a lot. So, but again, this is the auto stretch at a Astro Pixel Processor, very similar to Deep Sky Stacker's autosave. Now, I've also have this one as well, and this is a linear saved stack from Astro Pixel Processor. This has absolutely zero stretching done to it, zero adjustments added, absolutely nothing done. So a lot of people like to start out linear. Basically linear is just only your stacked data with whatever calibration frames you add in, and all of my stacks have 30 dark frames added in, this one and this one over here as well. But if you like to start linear, then I recommend saving as linear. And if you're going to be using the autosave out of Deep Sky Stacker, this is kind of what it looked like. Now, if you're using Deep Sky Stacker, you can save your image in linear. You have to make sure you save it in linear. It is possible to do that. A lot of people don't know that, but it can be done. So for today's processing, I'm going to show you guys the linear because I want full control over my stacked TIFF. I don't want to have any extra stretching or adjustments done. I want to be able to control everything from start to finish. So I'm going to show you using this particular one right here. Now before we get started, I want to just let you know that I'm going to be using paid Astro tools in this video, and you're probably like, oh man, I got to pay more money for something. Well, you know, in this hobby it is expensive, and you're going to be doing a lot of processing if you're doing astrophotography, and having the proper tool is going to help you a lot. I mean, imagine if you're trying to bang a nail in and you don't have a hammer and you're using a piece of wood. I mean, it's just not going to work, right? So you wouldn't do that. So these tools are going to help your processing game. They're going to make everything a lot easier and really up your image processing. So let me show you what we're going to be using in this video. So I've got the web open here. Some of the tools from RC Astro. This is Russell Croman Astro, and we're going to be using Noise Exterminator here today and Gradient Exterminator. These two alone have changed my processing game for the better, and it says take your astrophotography to the next level, and these tools absolutely will do that. So if you bought Noise Exterminator at 60 bucks and then you want to get any of the other tools, you will get a discount, 10 or 15% discount from any of the following tools that you buy. So this one of course is more, this one's a little less, but so just make note of that. If you buy one, you can get the next and following ones at discounts. These are all great tools. This one is Photoshop and Pix. This one's Photoshop and Pix Star Exterminator. If you want to pull the stars, this is an amazing tool. We won't be using this today. Gradient Exterminator, yes. And there's Star Shrink if you want to make your stars smaller. Now I've tried both of these and they are fantastic. I don't currently own a license, but something that I need to get and upgrade to. So okay, Gradient Exterminator today, Noise Exterminator today. All right, let's go to the next one. So next set of tools I want to show you are Pro Digital Software. And this is the Astronomy Tools Action Set at 22 bucks. In this action set, you are going to get 34 actions. These are awesome. This is what it looks like when you drop them in. Amazing tools. I don't use all of these, but a lot of them I do use in just about every single image that I process, and these are very helpful. These are all the steps and actions put into one-click buttons, and if you're not sure how to use these, you can always just scroll down here and it will teach you how to use each and every single one, tell you what it does, and give you tips and tricks on how to use it. They are absolutely fantastic. This is a great bit of information, so if you're not sure, you can always come over here and check these out. So again, this is the Astronomy Tools Action Set. Alright, so those are the tools I'll be using today, some of them. And before we get started here, you know, a lot of times in the beginning when I first started doing this hobby, I tried to process this entire image here that you see, and this was just an absolute headache. And especially if you're doing images like this, you're going to have crazy gradients, and you're going to have all kinds of field curvature in these eyepiece images, and it is going to be a pain, so I do not recommend doing that at all. Instead, what I recommend doing, and what I do, is I always crop in on the DSO and crop out all this nastiness that just makes processing so much more difficult. So let's get jumping. Now I've saved this particular image as a 16-bit, and that's important because we can only use 16-bit images here in Photoshop. Stack TIFFs, only 16 bits. Now if you do have this autosave at a DSS, you're going to have to change it, so make sure you come over here into mode and you put it to 16 bits. Click on that, and you're going to put exposure and gamma, and that's it, and click OK. And now you see we've got our channels pop up and our histogram pop up, so that's important. Just make note of that if you're processing with that autosave, or if you've saved the image and it's still in 32-bit, that's how you change it. Alright, so let's come over here and I'm going to click on the crop tool to start, and generally I want to try to get as much of the nebula as possible for processing. I want to try to crop out a lot of this area again on the edge that I don't want to use, absolutely unnecessary to have, but I want to make sure I get all of the good stuff, the pillars of creation in here, and I want to make sure that I get a lot of the wing area. I know where the nebulosity is in this image, so that's super important. And a good way to start is just crop out a little bit wider and then hit OK. And let's go ahead and full screen this, and at least we can see the pillars of creation in here. And I know up here is the head, and this is where the wing areas would be, and then there's some faint stuff down here. So this would be a good start, and we can't really see much in here because it's so dark. So one of the first things that I want to do here is I want to create a new layer. So I'm going to right click, duplicate this layer, click OK, and now we can start. So again, let's see, I am 16-bit, so I'm ready to go. We can see everything, and we can see our channels here. Nothing's really aligned up properly, but we're going to deal with that, so no problem. So because this is linear, first thing that I want to do here is I want to give it a slight stretch so I can see what's going on, check the gradients, check the background. So what I'm going to do is come up here into image, adjustments, and curves. And now I'm using the stars in this photo. A lot of times I would pull the stars before any major processing is done. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give this a slight curve. Nothing too crazy to start, just very simple so I can see what's going on. Something like this would be good to use. So just click OK. Now we can see our background and our data a lot more. And now we've gone from linear now into stretched. So let's go ahead and just adjust the black point a little bit and bring that over here. And it doesn't have to be perfect, just a general area. So if it's not so bright, actually you don't even have to do this if you don't want to. You can just keep it as it is. So I'm going to call this just curves 1. And that's it. Now from here I'm going to stamp down a new layer, and in order to do that I'm going to use the Shift Control Alternate E all together. Shift Control Alternate E, and that's going to bring everything up from down below into a new layer up top here. I don't recommend using duplicate layer every time. That's not a good workflow to have. So Shift Control Alternate E stamps down a new layer. Alright, so now we've got that out of linear. What would be the next thing that I want to do? Now I want to make sure all the gradients are neutralized here, and the best way to do that is to use Gradient Exterminator. But first I have to preserve the details that are in this photo, and the way to do that is come over here to Lasso Tool, and I'm just going to lasso where I believe is all of the nebulosity and things that I want to protect. Now once I do that, I'm going to inverse it. That's going to protect everything inside the circle that I created, but it's still going to work on the entire field of view here. That entire photo that you see is just going to protect everything. So next would be Filter, RC Astro, and we're going to do Gradient Exterminator. And a good start is medium and medium, and you can always balance the background color, which is helpful. So give that an OK. Boom, and you can see that did a wonderful job. We deselect, that totally took those colors and balanced them, the channels, and took out any gradients that were in there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to name that, actually, let's name that Grad X, Gradient X. Stamp down a new layer, Shift Control Alternate E, and let's just have a quick peek and see if how much noise we have in here. We're still pretty good. Look, everything looks pretty good. I don't see any noise. We're not going to use noise reduction yet. Let's go back to full screen. So now we're on our new layer. Now what would I do next? Now, next thing that I would probably do would be to either color balance or stretch again. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to kind of color balance and white balance, or I should say black point balance and white point balance. So how do we do that? So one of the things that I want to do here first is I'm going to come over here and just level out so I can find a nice solid black point in my photo. And I'm going to come over here to the eyedropper tool, right click, color sampler tool. So I want to find a good black point. So I want to find the best black area in this photo. And first thing, I'm going to zoom in. We're going to look around. Now I think it's going to probably be one of these corners, maybe down here or up here, away from the nebulosity. And if I zoom in and just have a peek, I don't want to put it on a star or any nebulosity areas, and then I make sure I come back over here. We are on color dropper, color sampler tool, and I'm just going to probably just drop it in right here, and it looks pretty nice. 19, 20, 20, that's okay. So that's a black point. And now what I want to do is I want to find a nice star to put my white point on, and I'm going to come over here. And let's see, what would be a good star? We want a good star that's not orange or red. We want a good star that's not completely bright whited out, but again, most of these are bright white, and that's kind of the color that we want. So let's see, how about, we've got a couple different stars here. How about something like this? Looks like a good one. So let's come back over here, make sure our color sampler tool, and I'm just going to drop a point right there, and there's our numbers for our white balancing. All right, full screen. So now that we've got that done, now what I'm going to do is just try to level out the colors here and make everything nice and adjusted and even. Come into levels, and let's see, we are at a 19, 20, 20. So we are pretty well even over here. Maybe let's go into the green, because we've got our green 20. Let's drop that down by 1. See, that should put us at 19. Come over to the blue, go ahead and drop that down by 1. Now you can use this slider here as well. Sometimes it's easier to put in a number. Looks like we might have to go 2 here. Okay, now we're at a 19. So 19, 19, 19, that's what we want. Now next we want to adjust the white, and I'm going to just come back over here again to levels, and to do that I'm going to use this particular slider here, and I'm just going to bring these all, well actually no, I'm sorry, I want to use the red. We're going to bring the red up. We're going to bring them all to 255 and just make it nice and even, 255. So boom, you can see we're here at 255. And let's do the green as well, 255, and the blue at 255. Now these might change. If they do, you can adjust them again, but let's click OK and see what happens. So 255, 255, 255, 20, 20, 20. So that is a balanced image, black point and white point. So let's name that levels, black point, and white point. All right, stamp down new layer, shift control alternate E. All right, so at this point I'm going to stretch this image again, and we're going to try to get some of this data to pop and see what we got. So I'm going to use the adjustments, curves. Now again, because I'm using the stars in this image, I'm not going to use a regular curves. I have a downloaded curve called ArcSine, and I got a 10 times, a 30, a 100, a 300, and a 1,000. And these are great for not stretching the super bright areas like stars, but they do stretch the background and the fainter areas quite a bit. So let's see, we're linear, so let's just go ahead and bump up a 30, and you can see this curve, how much it stretches that background and dark area, a little bit of the mids, and not so much in the super bright areas. And look, so if I click OK here, now our black points did change. We got really high there. So after doing that, you're going to come over here, we're going to levels, and we're just going to do a global back point level. We're going to just put it right to about where it starts there, and click OK. So I'm not so much worried about getting these perfectly even right now. I can adjust them at any time through this workflow. So don't forget to name that ArcSine 30 and levels. So I will include a download link to pick up all of those ArcSines, so you can drop them in your Photoshop. So have no fear. They're very helpful, and there's a lot of different ways to use them. There's stretch methods where it won't stretch your colors and brighten your colors. There's a ton of different ways to use them. I'm not going to get into that today. I'm just going to show you the kind of the basic workflow that you can use, and some of the great tools that you can use And I use these in all of my processing, just about every single image that I do. So that's the goal here today, show you some of these tools and show you some of the workflows, or the workflow that I do, some of the different things. So alright, so now that we've got that stretched a lot more, you can see we're seeing a lot more of the data in there. We turn it off, we turn it on, turn it off, turn it on. Yeah, we can really start to see some of those fainter areas. We're not quite there yet where I want to stretch it maybe one more time, but I'm going to check the noise before I do, because I don't want noise to get out of hand. And we can start to see some noise in here. It's not quite terrible yet, so I think I'm going to leave the noise alone for now. Let's stretch or stamp down a new layer, Shift Control Alternate E, and let's just go ahead and see what stretching one more time does. This time I'm going to do an arc sign 10, much less but still quite a bit. Click OK. Let's come up here and let's just do a global black point adjustment to bring those levels back down. Alright, yeah, so we're not quite even here. So now that I've done that curve, we probably got some gradients, but look at how much more data is popping in here. Some of this background stuff is really starting to show up. I mean, that just looks great. So I'm going to go ahead and name that arc sign 10 and levels. Stamp down a new layer, and let's just level out those colors, adjustments, levels. So let's bring down the red. Let's bring down the red to a 38, just like the other one. So there we go, 38, 38, 38. Let's see what that, click OK. Alright, so now we're pretty balanced there. And I'm going to just name that levels again. Shift Control Alternate E. And remember, we're doing all these different layers because this is a non-destructive workflow. You can go back, you can turn it off, have a look, you can delete it, you can redo it. This is great about Photoshop. So I think I've got some gradients in here that I want to deal with, but let's check the noise first, and let's see. Yeah, so we're getting a little bit noisy, so let's go ahead and maybe do the gradients first. So I'm going to click my lasso, and I'm just going to lasso out these areas that I want to protect, these details in here. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Inverse it, and come over here to Gradient Exterminator, and I'm not going to use the balanced background color this time, but medium. Click OK. Deselect, and let's have a look. That just took out some of that and smoothed out the image a lot better. So let's see. First, let me come over here and let's just do levels and maybe level out the black a little bit better, like that. So now we did change a little bit here. So I'm going to call that grad X levels, and I am actually going to come over here and adjust those levels one more time. So let's bring that red down, 31. 31, let's bring the blue down. To 31, and our looks like our lights did change in here again, so we can come back up here to levels and the red, and let's just bring that back up to 55. 255. Click OK, and we're just off by a couple here, so I can probably bring that green down just one. Click on the green just by one, and there we go. Now we're back to even again. Alright, so that's what we did. Stamp down a new layer, Shift Control Alternate E. So now probably at this point I've got a lot of the nebula showing here. I'm not going to overstretch it. Now the next thing I want to do is check that noise like we did before. Just have a peek. So yeah, you can see we've got some noise in here. So let's go ahead and deal with that. So filter, RC Astro, the noise exterminator. Now this is quite intense on the CPU on your PC and the RAM. So the more RAM you have, the better your CPU, the better and faster this is going to work, and less intense on your computer it is. So I'm using a laptop. 16 gigabytes of RAM. I've got a Intel Core i7, well over 10 years, so it's not super fast, but not super slow either. So let's see what happens. Okay, now it's done. Let me just show you real quick what I did. So noise exterminator, I used a denoise of 65, which is pretty mild, a good starting point with a detail of 10. This is a good starting point. You don't want to over denoise everything. It's going to kill your details, so be careful with this. So as you can see, here is after, here is before, and here is our noise. Let's check it after, before, after. That just smoothed it out, didn't kill our nebulosity, and gave us a cleaner image. So that's really nice. So I like that. So let's name that Noise X. And I'm just going to check. Let's see, our levels are a little bit off here as well. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to adjust those because I am very, very particular about it. About that, trying to have balanced photo. I think that's very important. So let's go ahead and try. Oops, a little too much there. All right, 31, and then it looks like the blue channel we're going to have to maybe bring up. 31, and of course this changed a little bit. That's okay, no big deal. All right, so again, we're balanced out. And let's stamp down a new layer, Shift Control Alternate E. So what would I do from here? Probably I'm going to adjust these colors. I'm going to adjust the colors in this image because this is not a purplish nebula. So what would I do from here on this? Come over here to Layer, and what we're going to do is we're going to use a different type of adjustment layer and go to Selective Color. Click OK, and now it's going to bring up your properties box wherever you may have it. And if you don't have these boxes popping up, make sure you go into your window and choose which ones, the same ones that I'm using. You can see, make sure you have these checked. These are important. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to make the reds and the blues pop a lot more because this is a hydrogen rich area and there's some oxygen through here as well along these stars and in this whole area. As you can see, it's not quite there yet, so we're going to adjust them. So to do that, first in the reds, we're going to start out, we're going to take cyan out, minus 100. We're going to plus 100, and you can start to see the colors change more, the reds popping more, and the blues starting to pop. So now that I've got that, what I'm going to do is come down here, and we're going to go back, we're going to go into the blues. And in the blues, we're going to add in cyan 100. And we're going to take out yellow from it. And now you can start to see the changes. That blue and those reds are really popping. Now the last bit that I want to do here is come into the magenta. In magenta, I'm actually going to add in cyan or take it out. How much do you like? More blended, or do you want to leave it? You can see the difference, how much more red it adds when you take it out, or if you add it in, it adds more blue. So a well-balanced would, of course, be right in the middle, right? Now, if I take out the magenta, you can see what happens. It takes out all that purplish color. So be real careful here with this particular box of magenta. You know, you can add in the more reddish like this or more bluish side? What looks more natural to you? I say let's probably just go on the more reddish side because this is a more reddish type of hydrogen-rich nebula. So let's go ahead and take cyan out of that. And now you can see those blues and reds are really starting to pop. They're still a little bit dull, but don't worry, we're going to adjust that here soon. So, all right, now what I'm going to do is, now with this particular layer, I've adjusted. Now, if I don't like anything right now, I can always go back. I can always go back in here and adjust something and make it different. Again, I can always come back in here and make it, to my liking, which is very nice with these layers. But once you stamp down a new layer, you cannot come back in here and adjust it. It's going to be as it is. So make sure you get it where you want it. So this is what I'm going to roll with. So let's Shift Control Alternate E. Now it's quite dull, but don't worry, we're going to saturate that here soon enough. So one of the first things that I think that I want to do here is looking at this image overall. I think I want to work on the stars. I want to try to make the nebula pop a little bit more because after stretching, these stars got a little bit bigger. So now we're going to come in here to the actions. Make sure you have your actions loaded, and I've got all my actions in here. And this is the astronomy tools action set like I showed you before. And a couple of the tools that we can use in here, I'm going to use the Make Stars Smaller. This is a great tool. Just be careful. You don't want to kill your stars. Now, if you use one iteration of this, it's very slight, so it's not going to overly make all your stars smaller. And it's going to do that globally throughout the entire image. Every star is going to be much smaller. Now, if you don't want to make all of the stars smaller, say maybe you want to make a lot of these brighter stars smaller, you can do that too. And I'm going to show you how to do that here today. So we're going to use this one, Select Brighter Stars. And if I select this and hit go, it's going to go over this image, and it's going to choose only the brighter stars and leave alone the background smaller stars. And if we zoom in here, you'll be able to see it chose those bigger stars and it didn't touch a lot of the background smaller stars. Now this chose the stars but not quite the size that I want, so I want to modify that. So up here into Select, Modify, and we're just going to expand the selection by 3, and that's a pretty good, I think. That gives us a little bit of the outside halo as well. There's still, of course, going to be some. You don't want to go too wide here. You want to try to get a nice uniform coverage area. And then last, we're going to come in here to modify. We're just going to feather out that selection. I'm going to bump it, I think. Let's do a 2 on the feather. And that's just going to smooth it out, the transition. So now that I've got that done, come back in here into your actions. Now we're going to use Make Stars Smaller. And when I click this, it's going to do the entire image, all of the stars smaller. But now, when I want to adjust only the ones that I selected, so I'm going to come down here and hit Per Selection Only. And Per Selection Only is going to change to only what I've selected. So this is a very important step. So watch as we go. I'm going to explain this to you. So here we go. Make Stars Smaller. Hit Go. And it's going to go through the motions, all the different actions that it has to do to make all of the stars smaller in the image. And it's relatively quick. Okay, boom, that's done. Now if I click this here, you can see it did all those different actions. Now it's important to come down here, Per Selection Only, click OK. And now let's click out of this, and now we have to click Deselect. That's important. Click Deselect, and let's zoom in, and let's turn it off. That's before, and that's after. Before, after. It's very so slight right now because there's only one iteration. So let's full screen, and we're going to do this probably 3 times. So now, next important thing to do is come here, select, reselect, and you see it picked all those brighter stars again. So let's go back into our actions, make stars smaller, click go. All right, don't forget, per selection only, click go. And then we're going to come out of here, deselect, that's important. Again, let's show you in here. Let's turn it off, on. Yeah, you can start to see now. So all those stretches that we did early on, bloated our stars out. And by using this action, we can bring those stars back down. So let's do that one more time. Let's reselect our actions, make stars smaller. All right, don't forget, per selection only. Close this out, and that was third time, that's the third time, oops, that's the third time that we did that. And let's just have a look. So before and after, and that gave us, I think, a nice star size. We could go even smaller, but we don't want to make the image look unnatural. So let's have a look from out here. Before, it's very faint, but it's noticeable. So without it, you can see more of that nebula that's in there. And then when you have it off, it just, your eyes kind of focus on the bright points more, the stars. So it makes a difference. So I'm going to call this big stars, smaller times 3. Boom. Shift Control Alternate E, new layer. Now what would I do at this point? We're getting near the end here, and I would start to tweak out things a little bit here. Probably a good thing to do would be to check the saturation. Our numbers over here look pretty good. We can adjust those, but I'm going to show you different technique to saturate. Normally you can just come up here into image adjustments, vibrance, and you can saturate in vibrance, but this is globally, and you can do this and it would give you, you know, a saturated photo, something like this, which is okay, which would be fine as well. You could do that, very simple, right? But I've got a method in action that I've created. This is from Adam Block. He designed this. This is called Adam Block Saturation Method, and I've added this action into here. I've actually created it from his adjustments, and I've got saturation here. And what this does is this really saturates the reds and the blues, and doesn't add in any noise. It doesn't stretch anything. It doesn't kill your stars, and it really works wonders. And I will include a download link in the description below for this action, so you can get this and the arc signs. You can drop these in and use these. They're great tools, very simple. Watch what happens. Watch the photo when I click this. Goes through the motions, boom, just like that. And let's zoom in and have a peek. Here's before, pretty dull. Here's after. Those reds and blues are popping a lot more. Wow, you can really see that. And you can do this a couple times if you like. If you like more saturation, just click go again. And really watch what it does. Wow, look at that. That is just ridiculously colorful in there. Wow, look at those blues popping, super popping. Now, do you like a lot of saturation? I particularly don't like a ton of saturation in mine. I like to keep it relatively mediocre. Now, what I can do here is I can use the opacity, and I can drop this down to, say, 50% or so. Something like this would be okay to do. You turn it off, you turn it on, but it's going to be up to you, you know, at what level do you like your saturation? So, you know, do you like it like this, a little more saturation or a little less? Again, it's going to be up to you. So let's keep it at 50% here. Let's keep it right about 50%. And now let's look at our colors, 31, 31, 31, and we're all aligned here pretty good. Not a big deal. Everything looks pretty good. All right, so stamp down a new layer, Shift Control Alternate E. And again, you know, 31 is pretty bright image, black point. A lot of guys go down to 25, 15, even 20 in some images. But with this, we have a lot of faint areas. We don't want to kill them. So we're going to keep this a little on the brighter side. That's going to be important to seeing a lot of these fainter areas that are in here. Now, if I want, I can also go in and try to, let's see, let's go in and let's see if we can bring out those reds and pop them a little bit more, selective color. And I can kind of do what I did before, come here into the reds, and if I take out the cyan, you see what happens? Those reds really start to pop a lot more. And I can make it, you know, as pink or as red as I want. It's kind of up to you, you know, what do you think looks good, or if you don't want it like that, it's that saturated, that red, you don't want to change the colors that much, you don't have to. There's so many various ways you can adjust colors in here. It's crazy. Photoshop has a lot of great tools, but something like that looks pretty good so far. So at this point, I would try to do some finishing tweaks. And what would I do next? I would come in here on the new layer. I'm just going to bump up the clarity using raw filter. I'm going to just give this nebula a little bit of pop here. In effects, you can see effects is open now. You can also come up here into color, and you can do your auto white if you like something more like this where it automatically adjusts. I'm not particularly for that. I don't think that looks very good. I like to keep it more like that, so I'm not going to actually mess with it. Come down here into effects, and I'm going to bump the clarity. I like to go, give it a little more pop. It kind of jumps out the image at you if you add in a little bit of clarity, but just be careful not to add in too much, because you'll see it'll start to look a little bit fake there. You want to keep it kind of minimal. So right on 20. You know, if you want to smooth that out, you can add texture, but it really butters out your details, so be careful. If you add it in, it gives a little crunch to everything, so I usually don't really mess with this too much, and that's kind of all I do. I mean, there's also detail down here. You can sharpen from here and do more noise reduction, color noise reduction. There's a lot of different things in here that you can do. Your color mixer, you can adjust the brightness of your reds, but again, be careful using this. It can get out of hand real quick. So, you know, like I always say, less is best, guys, when you're processing, because you don't want it to look fake. Don't want your image to look fake. You want to try to keep it looking as natural as possible. So that clarity gave it a little bit of pop. If I turn it off and on, and let's put that on full screen. So here's without it, here's with it. Gave it just a little bit of pop on the detail. So I'm going to name that raw clarity plus 20. Now stamp down a new layer, Shift Control Alternate E. Now there are some tools over here. You can come over here, increase your star color. You can do a local contrast enhancement. You can lighten only the DSO itself and the dimmer stars. You can enhance the DSO and reduce stars. There's a lot of different things in here that you can use. Space noise reduction, you can use that as well. There's gradient removal tools in here. There's a ton of tools. Let me just show you real quick what the local contrast enhancement does, and just to give you an idea. So you click on that, and that's going to give you a lot more pop throughout the image on contrast. But sometimes I don't like the output of what it does, so almost too much contrast. So here it is with it. Let's do before. You can see it's a lot smoother, less contrast, a little more contrast. So what suits your eye? So if we zoom in on the pillars of creation, you can see here a lot more contrast in there. You know, what do you like? But remember, it affects your stars as well and your background. So is this something that you like to use? If you like, remember, you can adjust the opacity, you know, to a 55%. If this is something that you like, you think it makes it, gives it a little more contrast, kind of up to you guys, you know, your eye. I think this is a pretty good looking image already, and I want to keep it as natural looking as possible. I don't want it looking super crunchy, so I'm actually going to take that out of there. So let's click down a new layer, Shift Control Alternate E. So now we are at the end. I think this is just about all you could do with this. There are a lot more micro tuning that you could do if you wanted to, but again, remember, less is best. The only thing that I would do now would be to attempt some sharpening to see what that would do to the image overall. This is a pretty good looking image. You know, there's ways to make these reds pop even more if I wanted to. I could come down here into adjustments, into curves, and I could choose the red channel and just give it a slight bump. And you see what happens. It really bumps up that red almost too much, which is what I don't want to do. And I could just pull this down and give a little kind of increase here, and I can even drop the blacks down so it's a little bit more red. You could do something like that, you know, as a finishing touch. It's kind of cheating, you know, because now you're at a 35, 30, 30. You're not balanced on your colors. So if we turn it off, that's more natural, right? And we've kind of cheated where we bumped up the reds a little bit more. So, you know, again, you can adjust the opacity if there's something that you see, you know, if you like having that in there, more red, your red's a lot stronger. Because again, there's a lot of hydrogen data in here, a lot of hydrogen alpha gas. So this is something that you could do, you know, again, on, off, It's really up to you. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to stamp down a new layer because I just deleted that, and I'm going to try some sharpening on this. So let's go ahead and fit. Now there are different sharpening techniques. You can use the camera raw sharpening. You can also use the sharpening, native sharpening here. There's an unsharp mask, which is also works very well. Normally what I've been doing is I've been processing my images without the stars, and I've just been sharpening the nebula or the galaxy itself. But today I'm just going to kind of show you one of my sharpening techniques that I really like to use. But again, we have the stars in here, so we have to be careful with it. So now that we're on our layer here, let's finish out. Let's come up here. We're going to convert for Smart Filter. Click OK. That's going to change only this layer for Smart Filter. Now we're going to come down here into Filter and Other, and we've got High Pass. Click on High Pass, and it's going to bring up this box. And we have a radius in pixels. Now you can see in the center here is the pillars of creation. And what it's going to sharpen a lot of the edge and some of the areas inside the edge, but it's going to sharpen these stars, so we've got to be very careful. Normally I might use a radius of a 3, a 3.5, but that's going to be too much on these stars, so I'm going to drop it down right around to maybe a 2.2 or so, and you can see there's our pillars, and you can see the edge and area it will affect. So let's try that, 2.2. Now, we've got this big gray image. You're like, what the heck just happened, dude? All right, so what we have to do now is we've got to change the blending mode. So come over here. There's two different blending modes that I recommend for this, soft light and hard light. And they are just like they sound. One is harder, hard light. If we zoom in on the pillars here, and I turn that off, you can see that sharpened a lot harder. And even the background area, and if you watch the stars, watch the background, the stars, and watch the pillars here, that sharpened them quite a bit, almost too much. It kind of gives it a really hard look. So I recommend using the soft light. Now with soft light on, you can see it's very subtle. It's not as hard. It doesn't overkill our background so much. And again, you know, This is how many pixels you use in your image. So we use a 2.2, but you don't have to use sharpen. You can keep it off and keep it as it is. You know, if it looks smoother that way. But this is just a finishing touch that I might do on my image to give it just an extra bit of sharpening, just to make it look good. So zooming in again, here's our pillars of creation. Wow, that looks pretty cool when we zoom in there. And then if we go over here, we've got the great stellar spire. That thing looks like a mega rooster head, big old chicken head to me. But just looking around the image, you can see our stars are not fantastic, and that's okay. You know, don't worry about your stars so much with these photos. If you can get nice round stars, even better. You know, good on you. I can't always get the best stars, but I'm not worried about that. That's okay. This nebula is what I'm focused on, and this is a pretty good image. I think that looks great. You can see all the different tools that we used here. We started out with you know, a linear, and we did a curves, a slight curves, you know, gradients, got rid of some of those. We set our black point and white points, and we did some arc sine curves here. It looks like I've got arc sine 20 there, which is actually a 10. Then we leveled it out. We did a little bit more gradient levels here as well. We did our noise adjustment, and then we kind of adjusted these colors one more time. We worked on our stars in the image. I've created just a new layer here just in case. And then we did the atom block saturation, which looks great, I think. A little bit of raw clarity tweaks. And then finishing off with a little bit of sharpening. So don't over sharpen, it will destroy your image. So looking at this, what do you think? Did that come out pretty good? Does that look good? Would you be happy with that? Comment in the section below. I always like to hear other people's comments about what you think, or maybe something that I should have done differently in my workflow. And again, remember, this is just a basic workflow. I don't always use it in this order. It depends on the data that I put in and the image that I'm working on. A nebula and galaxies and star clusters are much different, so each one has its separate workflow. So, but this just gives you an idea of the tools that I'm using in Photoshop. The paid Astro tools, again, man, they are lifesavers. They can really help you and bring your game, your processing game up. So let's have a look. We're 30, 30, 30, and we're pretty balanced over here. So that's a pretty well balanced image, I think. Not too bad. I'm pretty happy with this. I hope you would be too. Tell you what, when I first started doing astrophotography, I never would have guessed that I was able to take something like this using the phone that's in my pocket. And a lot of people would tell you, don't use your smartphone with your telescope. But I say to them, you know what, hey, look what I just created, and I did it with the phone that's already in my pocket. So you can too, guys. You're just going to take a lot of practice, and of course quality gear does help, and having these Astro tools are a game changer. So all right, well, I think we're going to stop here. Are you happy with this photo? Let me know. Okay guys, that was fun, that was exciting. Look at that beautiful image, M16, the Eagle Nebula, looking great. I hope you were able to follow along in this tutorial and learn how to use Photoshop, layers, and some of the tools and techniques that I used to process my Astro images. I hope they were helpful to you all out there. So, final takeaways of this video. Remember, number one, less is always best. When you're processing, never over process your image. It's going to look fake and just not good, but that's going to be dependent on the data and the quality of the data that you put into it. So quality data, focused data, darker sky the better. You're going to get images like this, and it's just going to be overall better. Number two, the layer system is your friend, guys. Layers are awesome in Photoshop. That's one of the reasons why I love it. You can delete something, you can go back in history, you can change it. You can do so many things in Photoshop. It is a little bit of a process to learn, but you see it's actually relatively simple. As I've explained here today, there's overall quite a lot in Photoshop, and as you go, you will learn these techniques. Now, number three, the Astro Action tools, that I showed you today, yes, they do cost money, but everything in astrophotography costs money, as you're probably learning at this point. So this is just a minimal price to pay, and these tools are going to help you tremendously, so I can't recommend them enough. So go out and pick them up, guys. Drop them in Photoshop, and they're going to truly help your astrophotography processing go to the next level. So again, this was super fun. I'm excited. M16 looking great. Wow. Let's do more of these processing videos in the future. I want to share with you guys some more advanced techniques, but I want to keep these videos short too and just show you the basics like we did today. So if you like this video, hit like, guys. Questions, comments, please. I'm always here to help. I'm glad. Check out my social media. Again, let's do more of these in the future. Thanks for watching, everybody. Clear skies to you all. Take care. We'll see you on the next one.